Illustrator's pen tool allows you to draw open and closed paths with incredible control and precision. The pen tool creates what are called Bezier curves, and these curves, although based on mathematic principles, allow you to draw both creative and precise shapes at the same time. The pen tool takes some practice, but in time will become one of your most trusted tools in Illustrator. I'm beginning this video with the paths.ai file already open on my computer. And I've already selected the pen tool, but before we get started using this tool, I want to point out that if you hold down the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows, you'll notice that it's going to select one of your selection tools. Now, if your selection tool, as you hold down this modifier key, is not the white arrow or direct selection tool, what I need you to do is let go of the modifier key, come up here to your tools panel and select the direct selection tool, and then select the pen tool again. Because really what happens when you hold down the Command or Control key on your keyboard is it temporarily activates the last selection tool that you had active. And for this exercise and when using the pen tool, it's most helpful when the modifier key activates the direct selection tool versus the standard selection tool. So I'm going to let go of that key, and now let's get started drawing with the pen tool. The first thing I'm going to do is draw this zigzag line that you see down here in the middle of our screen. So using the pen tool, we can click once and let go of your mouse, and that's going to create what's called an anchor point. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. And then I'm going to come up here to the next angle here, and I'm going to click one more time. And you're going to see here that Illustrator has drawn two anchor points. And when I did that, it drew a line segment in between. So as you can see, the pen tool is very much like connect the dots. And as I come down here and click, it's just going to continue drawing from that last point, creating one long continuous path. So continue drawing this zigzag pattern until you get to the end here. And it's important to understand that we drew what's called an open path. Now, a point that I want to make here is if you see this cursor here, which is like a crosshair, it's probably because you have the caps lock key turned on. And it's fine to draw using that cursor. It's actually helpful at times when you're drawing precise shapes to turn on the precise cursor using the caps lock key. But as I'm drawing here, I'm going to turn that key off. That way you can see the standard pen tool cursor. Now, the other thing I want to point out is by just clicking and connecting the dots with the pen tool, you are drawing what are called corner points. And corner points can only draw straight line segments, as you've seen here. Now, let's move up here to this square. And although it's easiest to draw a square using the rectangle tool up here, we're just doing this for illustration purposes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click in the lower left corner. Now what you're going to see, if you move up here, is that Illustrator didn't know that I was done with that open path down here. It wants to continue connecting the dots. So here's how you deal with this situation. We're going to undo, so I'll do a Command Z on Mac or Control Z on Windows. And before I start drawing the next shape, just hold down the Command key on your keyboard or the Control key on Windows and click anywhere on your artboard, and that will deselect the existing path, and now we'll be able to draw a new path. So what we're going to do is click once in the lower left corner. It's going to create an anchor point. I'm going to click once in the upper left corner here, create another anchor point. Click once in the upper right corner. Click once again in the lower right corner. And then we're going to come back to this lower left corner, and when you hover your cursor over that, you're going to notice you get a circle, indicating that if you click here, which we're going to go ahead and do, it's going to close the path. So the difference is we used corner points for both of these shapes here, this zigzag pattern and the rectangle or square, but this is a closed path, which means it completes itself, and this is a open path, which means that both ends remain open. Now over here, to create a circle, this is a little bit of a different situation, because so far we've created only corner points, which draws straight line segments. What I'd like you to do is go to your View menu, come down to Guides, and choose Show Guides. And that's going to display some guides that are going to be helpful for drawing a shape such as this. Now, once again, if I really needed to draw a perfect circle, we would use the ellipse tool found over here. But I want to just show you how powerful the pen tool can be. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click on this intersection of the guides, and I'm going to drag straight up. And once my cursor gets to the upper guide here, I'm going to let go. Now you can temporarily hide your guides for a second by typing Command semicolon on Mac or Control semicolon on Windows. Now the difference here is that I just placed an anchor point on my document, but by clicking and dragging, I've dragged out what are called directional handles. And when I do this, this is no longer a corner point, this is a smooth point. And by drawing a smooth point, I can draw curved lines. So I'm going to turn my guides back on, Command semicolon or Control semicolon on Windows, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and drag down. And when my cursor gets to that guide, I'm going to go ahead and let go again. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and drag up again. And that's going to complete my path, and it's going to draw the second line segment. Now let's turn off our guides for a second so we can see what we have here. When you click and drag with the pen tool as opposed to just clicking, you pull out a directional handle, and whatever direction you pull that handle, you're telling the next line segment that you draw to begin going in that direction. So that's what these directional handles do. And then over here, when I clicked and dragged, again, I'm telling the next line segment, which is this, to begin going in a downward direction. Now here's a few tips. If you hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, this temporarily activates the Convert Anchor Point tool. And this does a couple of things. If you click on one of the directional handles, you can drag, and that's only going to distort one half of the shape. So you'll notice this half was still pointing in the downward direction, which is controlling this line segment. But as I distort this shape, I can create new and interesting shapes. And if you hold down the Command key and you drag one of these directional handles, you're going to notice that it distorts both sides of the anchor point at the same time. Now, in addition, if you hold down the Option key and you click on an anchor point, that will convert it to a corner point. And as you can see here, this is now not allowing me to have any smooth line segments. It's a corner point, so it can only draw straight lines. So it's drawing a straight line, but then kind of blending in to the smooth anchor point that we have here. You can use that same Convert Anchor Point to convert a corner point to a smooth point by clicking and dragging. And that will then pull out those directional handles again so that you can modify the shape in different ways. I'm going to move down to this bottom example here because I want to show you how you might reproduce this particular shape. So if you click and drag straight up, you let go, and then I'm going to come over to this point and click and drag straight down. And if you don't get it perfect, don't worry. You can modify it now, or you can always come back and change it as well. The point I want to make here is that now I have a directional handle that's telling the next line segment to be smooth and to go in a downward direction. And I don't really want that. So I'm going to hold down the Option key on Mac, the Alt key on Windows, and I'm going to drag this directional handle to point to the right here. And what that allows me to do is I can simply click here now, and it's going to draw a straight line segment from this point to this point. To go from a corner point to a smooth point again, we're going to hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, and I'm going to click on this anchor point and drag straight down to pull out a directional handle. Then I can come over here and click and drag to draw my curved line segment. Now, to modify these line segments, what you want to do, we need to modify this a little bit. So what you're going to do is hold down the Command key on Mac, the Control key on Windows, and whatever line segment you click on, it'll show you the directional handles that control that particular line segment. So to adjust this section, we just Command or Control click on that segment. Then I'm going to use the Option key on Mac, the Alt key on Windows, to change this shape to match what I want it to look like. I'll then come over here, Command click on the line segment itself, then hold down Option, and you can change these directional handles to match the shape that you're looking for. To give yourself a little bit of practice, come over here to the second artboard, and you can see how this would be a great example of where you would use the pen tool. And don't forget to terminate your line segment here. So I'm just going to undo, and then we'll Command click to deactivate that line segment. And what we'll do is, this is a great example where we'll just click, we're just drawing this overall outline shape. And you want to be careful here because in my example, I'm applying a stroke of black and a fill of white. I really don't want it filled, so I'll just click on the fill indicator and click None. And then I can bring the stroke forward again, and I can just continue drawing here. So again, we're just clicking to draw this overall shape. When you get up to this point, you might want to zoom in a little bit because this is going to kind of get a curve to it. So what you can do is come up to about here, click and drag to create your curve. Then we can come down here, click and drag again to get the curve. We can always come back here. We would use the Command key on Mac or the Control key on Windows to just tweak these shapes to get them to match a little bit more accurately. Use the Option key here to tweak this, and then we'll just kind of continue drawing here. Again, this one, come up here, click and drag to create your smooth shape. Click and drag again, and then hold down your Option key and point in the right direction, and then we just continue drawing our shape. Now I'm going to terminate this path. I encourage you to continue going, but I want to show you that when you get to the smoke section here, this is where you're going to want to use your curve points. So if I were drawing this shape, I would start down here, and I would just kind of click and drag to create that semicircle. Then hold down your Option key and change this to go in this direction. That way you can click and drag to create that. And I'm just using my Option key to change the direction of these directional handles. Now don't expect to become an expert with the pen tool overnight, but know that many Adobe applications have the same pen tool found in Illustrator, including Photoshop, InDesign, and Flash. This is not done by accident, as you've seen how powerful and how useful the pen tool can be when creating your artwork. With a little practice, you'll find the pen tool to be indispensable.